what to think about this.
Name one thing that Biden has done that's worse than that.
I think his whole administration is a disaster for the country.
Is
The
worse
whole
than
thing.
subverting the peaceful transfer of power?
Did he succeed?
Good one. Absolutely based and bar-pilled.
Only because Vice President Mike Pence stood in the way, and now the people who are lining
He
up to
tried
be
to
VP again say that they will not do what Mike Pence did.
I mean, look,
Name one thing that Biden has done that's worse than that.
I think his whole administration is a disaster for the country.
Is worse.
The couch meme. I don't know what this Vance couch meme is. Should I know? Why is Barr still bending the knee? I have no idea. I don't know what he does now or what he wants his future to be, or if he wants like some future in the Republican Party. How old is he? 74? I truly have no idea. I'm not sure.
500 cigarettes.
What is this?
I have never been so full of hate.
For Kamala Harris?
Yeah, I woke up
and
this
the
morning.
entire Democrat Party?
Yeah, because Joe Biden I dislike, but people voted for him in a primary. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't trust the primary process, but people advocated for it. They advocated for the voting for him. And then he wins the primary through their ridiculous superdelegate process. Now I'm sitting here.
That's Biden did not win through the superdelegate process. Even Hillary, that they like to say, didn't win through the superdelegate process, but okay. I don't even know if he knows. He probably doesn't actually have any idea how any of that even works, but okay.
They advocated for the voting for him, and then he wins the primary through their ridiculous superdelegate process. Now I'm sitting here being like, we know they steal it. We know they manipulate, but now they're just coming out and outright appointing someone who no one voted for, and then Lord help me, you've got these liberal pundits being like, yay, democracy. And I'm just like, I have never been so full of hate in my life.
Yeah, because you don't know what government is. You don't know how democracy works. You don't know how any of the systems of government. You don't even know how the DNC works. Like, you just have no fucking idea about anything.
It is.
Okay. Okay, boom, boom. What is this? Oh my God, the keys! What keys are we talking about today?
Showing that the greatest hoax ever perpetrated constitutionally on the American people was the notion that the Second Amendment, according to the framers, guaranteed an individual right to keep and bear arms, not a right tied to a well-regulated...
Oh. Why? This guy agrees with me. Why would you link an agreeing opinion? Keep watching. It was for the factoid that he gave.
Showing that the greatest hoax ever perpetrated constitutionally on the American people was the notion that the Second Amendment, according to the framers, guaranteed an individual right to keep and bear arms, not a right tied to a well-regulated militia. I'll give you one of like half a dozen facts that I laid out in my book. Who crafted the Second Amendment, Sam?
The person?
The person. Very famous guy. You know him.
Thomas Jefferson?
Close. James Madison.
Okay.
And what did James Madison own?
Slaves.
Slaves. And lots of slaveholders voted for and ratified the Second Amendment. Do you think for one moment slaveholders would have ratified an amendment that gave free black people an unlimited right to keep and bear arms? Of course not. But by tying it to a well-regulated militia, say that fast,
no,
they guaranteed to keep it out of the hands of black people, because were black people allowed in the militia back then?
No.
No. So, that's just one of so many historical facts ignored by those who perpetrated this hoax about the Second Amendment.
Weren't black people not people back then? I have no idea if that would have even mattered or not. I don't know enough about how the constitutional law would have applied down through the states at the time to even know the answer to that. But there were free blacks, Yeah, I'm sure there were some, but
Dominique Clark with a £5 donation.
That's more than $5.
All the way from the UK.
That's nice.
Let's hear your best English accent.
No, you don't want
No,
that.
come on.
was that all you wanted me to listen for? Was that?
Cheerio.
No, say more.
Cheerio, old chap.
Okay, not bad.
Stiff upper lip and all.
What? What did you say?
Stiff upper lip.
Oh, stiff upper lip. Gotcha. What are your thoughts?
God save the Queen.
All right, that's enough.
I was hoping you'd say it was enough.
What are your thoughts on Buttigieg's sexuality if he is the VP pick? Would it be unfortunately detrimental to the Harris vote because of the deep-rooted stigma of many Americans?
Wouldn't affect the keys, and I think the chances of Buttigieg becoming the choice for Harris is essentially zero.
Member Soccer Guy says, "Hi, Alan. I'm confused why you haven't called key 10 yet, which is the foreign/military failure key."
Which way do you think I should call it?
Well, they're saying, wouldn't a failure have already happened?
Not necessarily. I think things are, as you say, in Ukraine are so ambiguous. It's hard to say, and we'll see what happens in Gaza. That situation could change very rapidly. But as I said, it's likely to go against the White House party.
Jordan Johnson wants to know, is this the scariest election?
Hasan is saying, oh, Hasan clips. Okay, last clip.
Fuck I'm talking about, dude. I didn't just get in on this conversation last second and just basically repeat shit that you heard on MSNBC or Destiny, okay? Even he is new to the fucking fold in comparison to someone like myself.
Of what?
Like, I've been doing this for longer than he has as well. Which, you know, every time I bring that up, his fan base gets real fucking mad about that, but that's the truth.
Ooh, that was a very, very, very clever lie that he just told. He's claiming, by the way, I think he might actually be correct. He's claiming that he was involved in online politics before me. That's probably true because he worked with the Young Turks and he was doing like transphobic content or whatever the fuck else. He was doing that type of stuff before I was doing online political stuff. But nobody gets mad because of nobody gets mad because he said he started that first. It's because he pretended that he started unifying like gaming and politics first, which was clearly the thing that I did. That was why people got upset. But that's cute that he's reframing this. It's a very clever lie that he's trying to tell now. Nice. Okay. Let's do our quick connections and our time guesser, and then we'll. Oh no, it's the same one. What is this tweet?
Don't you think if you doubt like literally every single third-party organization that you should have some counter evidence that you can present?
No. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. You're getting lost. You do not need counter evidence to attack the validity or the.
Are you
No.
claiming an agnostic position on this?
I didn't say that. I'm just. You don't need a position to counter a position that you believe is unsound. I don't need a position on that. If somebody comes in and they say, okay, here's my syllogism. 5 million people died yesterday to shark attacks, okay? And I know that because on TV, I was watching a cartoon where Dora said that 5 million people died. Therefore, my conclusion is 5 million people died to shark attacks. I can attack that argument all day and say, this doesn't logically follow, and the premises aren't even true, so it's invalid and it's unsound, and you can't go, oh, wait, so what's your position on it? I don't need to have a position to attack the validity of the other argument. My whole point is to show you the flawed methodologies being employed here.
Don't you think if you doubt like literally every single third-party organization that you should have some counter evidence that you can present?
There's two huge issues with Andrew trying to make this comparison, okay? So here's the first issue. The first issue is the style of the debate or what the prompt is or what we're actually debating, okay? Alex was taking the affirmative position that there was sufficient evidence to say that, hey, like, here are all of these bombings that I think have happened. Here are the reports. I think that you can easily say that, this was done intentionally by the military of Israel. When I was going through him affirming those positions, I didn't feel like he was using a sound methodology to arrive at any of his conclusions. And rightfully so, I was attacking that. And my position was declared from the very beginning agnostic on that particular thing, okay? I didn't believe, or even... I don't even know if I don't think I would say agnostic. I think I would say my position was there's not enough evidence. It was, his position was there was enough evidence to say that Israel had conducted in some, conducted war crimes, intentionally, whatever. And my position was there isn't good evidence that Israel has conducted that.
And for my position, I can start at nothing, and then he has to provide the evidence, and then we can go from there, right? And that type of debate and that style of a debate, that's perfectly acceptable. The January 6th debate that I was having with Andrew Wilson is, one, it had to do with whether or not there was an insurrection or whether or not there wasn't an insurrection, okay? But the first thing is, an insurrection is like, we're talking like a definition of a word. We're not talking about like a thing that we have to collect evidence and gather evidence for to prove that it exists, right? So, for instance, if Andrew Wilson wanted to draw an analog to our debate, to my debate with Alex, then the analog would be, okay, Destiny, why do you think there was an insurrection? And then I would provide a bunch of evidence, and then Andrew would go, oh no, Destiny, I don't think that that's good evidence, or you don't have any strong evidence that Donald Trump said this, or that the protesters were holding these signs, or that the protesters believed, X, Y, Z things. That would make it comparable. And if he was able to do that, what he'd be able to do is he'd be able to say, oh, Destiny, now you haven't demonstrated that January 6th is an insurrection because your argument is not sound. You haven't been able to build arguments towards it. But that's not what that debate was. The debate was him arguing over the definition of insurrection. That's it. We didn't even get that debate off the ground. For it to be comparable for my debate with Alex, it would have to be this. Me and Alex would have to have a debate, and Alex would have to go, okay, I think that Israel committed war crimes against Palestine. And then I would go, oh, define Palestine. And then Alex would go, okay, well, I think that Palestine is the Gaza Strip plus the West Bank. Really? According to who? Well, this was the territory recognized by who? Israel doesn't recognize it that way. And then it would be like doing the whole debate like that. And then at the end going, oh, well, you needed to provide the positive position and I've merely defeated your positive position. But no, I haven't defeated the argument that Israel is committing war crimes on Palestine. I took issue with the definition and the term, and then I attacked the definition. And there can be times, by the way, where you could legitimately attack somebody's definition. That's not a bad thing to do. However, Andrew wasn't attacking my definition of insurrection because he didn't feel like it was a sufficient definition. He attacked my definition of insurrection because he had none of his own, and he had no argument on his own. I don't think it's fair to say that Andrew was neutral or agnostic or whatever on the position of insurrection because he didn't even have a definition for insurrection. He can't have a position on it. It's the difference between having a neutral or a negative position on something versus a position that's like undefined, right? That's why that was the whole point of me saying, do you think that January 6th was a right? You wouldn't say that like, well, I'm not sure. I don't really have a strong stance on that. Or I'm going to say no. You wouldn't say like, I'm not sure, I'm agnostic, or no, I don't think so. You'd say, I don't know. I have no idea what the fuck you're saying. I can't even evaluate. I can't parse the statement, right? I can't look at it word by word and imagine like what we're even trying to say here. So I can't tell you if I'm agnostic or if I'm have a contradictory position or not. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, the point of this debate, and I'm not going to spend any other time on here because it's a waste of time. The point of this debate was just like a torture test of. I just wanted to see if I was missing any holes in like my logic or missing like any particular facts that would be convincing. And I think Andrew is smart enough that if there were facts in my argument that were missing, or if there were holes in my logic to construct my argument, I think Andrew would have pointed those out really effectively. And the fact that he couldn't, and that half of his intro was built on clips of me from 3 years ago, I think means my argument's pretty airtight. So, yeah. Was there any reason you didn't direct the convo to fake electors? Yeah, because I was just talking about the event of January 6th, because he was going to, if I brought up any other prior Trump action, he was just going to say, can you prove that any of the people there knew about this, or can you prove, and then it would have gotten into the whole, like I said, this was just like one debate. I just wanted to trial just on the insurrection arguments alone. I was just curious. None of my future like conservative debates are going to, will resemble this one. This was just like a trialing of just the J6 insurrection argument. Do you think Andrew does believe it was an insurrection and he just thinks it was good? Yeah, I think his true position is concealed. His true position is not that he's agnostic on it. He's obviously lying about that. But I think he knows that whatever true position he has is probably indefensible in opposition to somebody who knows what they're talking about, right? Yeah.
Hey, dude.
All right, what's up?
So you know that Ava Chris stuff that's been going around?
Yeah.
Yeah. I ended up having a bit of a debate with my own chat over some of the stuff. Particularly like the lolly content crap.
Okay.
I have been struggling to actually come up with an argument for why like lolly should be banned. And to be more specific, like depictions of children, because there's lolly content that's, you know, like technically legal lolly. It's adults that just look short and cute. I'm talking about like sexual depictions of children.
Okay.
But in artwork. The only argument that I've been able to come up with is it could constitute hate speech, where you're promoting violence against a protected group, in this case, children. The United States doesn't have hate speech laws. They do have things like disturbance of peace, crap like that, but only like Canada, Europe, and crap have hate speech laws. But what do you like? I can't think of an argument for banning lolly content, but not also it resulting in a ban on other kinds of violent or obscene artwork.
Yeah, no, I don't think in the United States, I don't think we should be banning artistic depictions of anything. I don't like that argument for the United States. I don't know about Europe, but in the US, no, I don't think so. I think that's too far.
So are you are like, do you believe hate speech is having a ban on hate speech is a bad thing?
Legally? Yes, I don't think that legally the United States should be banning
Really?
hate speech. Yeah. In the US at least. I can't speak to how other countries are set up, but
Okay, are you familiar with Canada's hate speech laws?
nope.
Okay, I can give you a basic rundown. I'm sure you could research it more on your on your free time, but basically it's any speech that promotes violence against protected groups. So that would be minorities, black people, Asians, Jews, gays, trans, stuff like that. So if you were to say something like, you know, Jews are evil and they're trying to take over the world, that could conceivably promote violence against that protected group. And similarly, if you said like all trans people or gay people are pedophiles, same kind of thing. That would be banned under Canada's hate speech laws, and you could get prosecuted in different ways, like fine, if you don't pay a fine, certain amount of imprisonment, crap like that. What would the only defense you can have against hate speech was that the speech you were saying wasn't actually hateful and wasn't intended to promote violence. Two, it's actually factual. So if you say anything that can be provably true, so let's say if you said something, you know, 50% of crime is caused by black people, you might get charged with hate speech, but if you could prove that's actually a provable fact, then that wouldn't be hate speech. And stupidly, if you're part of a religious group, that actually protects you against hate speech prosecution. So if you could prove that it's an aspect of your religious belief, then you can't be prosecuted under hate speech. So if you said Jews are the scum of the earth, and then you said, well, I'm Muslim, and it says right here that like Jews need to be eradicated in the Quran, then that would protect you. I don't know why they have that provision, but
Okay, wait, what
do
is
you
the
have-
point? What about, yeah.
Yeah. So my point is, do you have any particular issue with that?
Fuck, I'm sorry. Could you re-summarize what you just said? That there's provisions where if you do hate speech and it leads to harm or it can lead to harm, it should be illegal or something? I'm so sorry.
So hate speech is specifically any kind of speech that promotes violence against a protected class of people.
Sure. I think that definition seems like it would be overly broad. I'd be worried about that.
So it's basically the same thing as if it's essentially the same idea behind disturbance of the peace. So if you yell fire in a crowded theater, same kind of idea.
I think that
if
in
what
that,
you're
I think
saying
I
could
like that because
reasonably-
that's like a very clear in time, like you're saying something and it's designed to produce a particular negative thing immediately. Then I think that that's bad. So like incitement crimes where somebody is saying something with the intention of inciting people to lawless activity or unlawful activity. I think that's fine to make that illegal. But just like hate speech in general, I don't think, even if you could say that it might lead to, I'm just not comfortable with that.
Well, I mean, especially for specific cases, like with Jews, for instance, if you heard a Nazi talking about how the Holocaust never happened, the Jews made it up so that they could control the world, and they're trying to turn your kids gay, and they're trying to destroy all of society, and they're killing you with microplastics. Like, that's something that could conceivably and realistically lead to actual violence against that sort of group.
Yeah, I could, but I think that's political speech. I think you have a right to have that, to say that if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. If you were in Germany before the Nazis took over, and we're talking about after Hitler was freed from prison, I think there was a 2-year period where he wasn't allowed to speak publicly or write for his newspaper. You would have allowed him to speak publicly and write for his newspaper about how, like, Jews are evil?
God damn. Oh my God. Yeah, I think in the United States I would. I can't speak to Germany, but yeah, in the U.S., yeah, I think you should be
I don't
allowed
know. I mean, I don't know how that would make a difference.
Well, because different countries might have whole different constitutions or values or things. But yeah, for my country, yeah, I would say, yeah, they wanted to publish it. I think that those are important rights to be able to speak freely. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you literally saw somebody who had the exact same political beliefs as Hitler, and you saw a similar kind of uprising of, fascist ideology, particularly targeted against Jews, you'd be okay with them speaking publicly.
Yes. As long as it didn't qualify for like a direct incitement to violence. Like they weren't saying, we're going to go kill these Jews here right now or something. Yes.
I don't know why that would matter. Like we already have historical precedent on like what actually happened.
Because then I think what happens is you end up chilling a whole bunch of political speech that becomes, your laws become very broad. And what you can criminalize as speech, I think becomes very dangerous. I think it's not good.
So I would say no. I don't know how, banning somebody from saying the Holocaust never happened would chill any kind of valid political discussion.
What about somebody saying that I think that kids below the age of 18 should have access to trans health care? And people say this is causing the killing of children.
If you're advocating for access to trans health care,
yeah,
and somebody says that is killing trans kids.
Yeah, that you're causing people to do mutilation, self-mutilation, self-harm, yeah.
I don't think under Canada's laws that would actually constitute as hate speech because there's nothing about that speech that is meant to actually incite hate.
Well, how do you know that? Conservatives say that they're trying to kill our kids. They're trying to poison our kids. They're trying to make it so we can't reproduce anymore for incoming invaders.
The point is, they're not. The point is, hate speech is an incitement of violence towards a targeted group.
Yeah, and they would say that trans speech is an incitement of violence towards children. That's what usually conservatives argue. That's how they argue for all the book bannings and shit in schools, right?
Right. The problem is, if I were to say, if we allow trans kids to transition, that's going to cause them harm, or it's going to, I don't know, make them commit suicide, or it's mutilating them or something. That type of speech isn't meant to incite violence towards that targeted group.
But do you understand that you're exercising your own personal opinion on this, but other people are going to have an opinion that disagrees, right? So that the issue is, do you want a court deciding what type of speech is allowed or isn't allowed when it's just like political speech that could down the road lead to violence?
Well, the argument from the trans community would be that it is causing violence towards trans people because they're not allowed to actually get necessary medical care.
Yeah, but then the argument from conservatives would be it's not necessary medical care, it's just you're brainwashing children and mutilating them.
Right, but from a legal perspective, if we use the definition of hate speech that's used in Canada, that wouldn't. There's no reasonable expectation that saying we should bar trans care to minors. There's no reasonable expectation that would encourage somebody to say shoot up a school because there's a trans kid in there.
Okay, I disagree. I think that
That's
depending on
the
where your
point.
conservatives are at, I think they absolutely could come to that.
Well, there certainly is hate speech against trans people that would constitute hate speech. So calling all trans people or LGBTQ members groomers, that is something that would constitute as hate speech in the Canadian Constitution.
What about calling all conservatives Nazis?
That probably wouldn't, because again, if we were to like, there's another provision in the Canadian Constitution that protects comedic or hyperbolic speech. So if you were
but then
to
they're going to say
explain-
the same thing about trans people being groomers, no?
Probably not. You would have a much harder. You'd have a much more difficult time saying that's hyperbole.
Why?
Well, when you see what they're writing and the way they're writing it, it just seems to have a much more serious tone behind it. The way they react to posts like Ava, Chris, Tyson, like just look at their reactions behind some of the accusations that have come out. Like they're saying all trans people are groomers. We have to like eliminate trans ideology from the planet.
What are people saying? Like we've got like Nazis. Everybody needs to punch a Nazi. Like look at all these Nazis. We have to get rid of them, like we did in World War II. Like we actually, America did like go and kill a bunch of Nazis, right?
Right. Yeah. Nazis aren't a protected class, though.
Okay.
But if you call, like, I'd say, like an advocate for, because the groomer accusation doesn't just go to LGBT people, right? It goes to teachers who are cis and straight who, like, teach these things to kids, right? It's like anyone who's pro-trans is like a groomer to these people, right?
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sure James Lindsay just says, okay, groomer in response to fucking everyone. Yeah. But is that like, hate
Right,
speech, or
but
should that be illegal? Yeah.
right, but the whatchamacall, I haven't seen this have a political chilling effect in any country that has any sort of sensible hate speech laws, like Canada. So like we could argue a bit of these like weird finer points about whether or not calling like a pro-trans person or a pro-LGBT person a groomer, whether that constitutes hate speech. I haven't really seen this come up in Canada yet, where there's like a criminal trial for somebody saying this on Twitter. So I just don't see this having an actual chilling effect. And again, we know that hate speech does lead to, you know, circumstances like Nazi Germany. So I don't know why you wouldn't be in favor of banning certain forms of speech.
Hold on, I'm about to make this is about to be the sickest fucking guess in the world. I'm so sorry. Hold on real quick. 1 sec. 2007. Let's fucking go. World's End. I'm an actual god at this. I've transformed into a fucking god. I've transformed into a god. I'm so sorry. Okay, continue. Go ahead.
I would push back against the idea that it was like a permissiveness of speech that got the Nazis into power. Definitely not over like, especially in terms of anti-Semitism, because you mentioned Hitler was banned from speaking until it was 1927. But the Weimar Republic did have censorship laws. They weren't very good. They were massively politicized, but like Der Stürmer was confiscated or taken to court like dozens of times. People were sentenced to jail actually for anti-Semitism or for like advocating for violence. Like Stryker, the guy who ran Der Stürmer, like he was jailed. There were lots of litigations brought up against these people and prosecutions, but the problem is that when Hitler started to gain popularity, it was around the period of the Great Depression when he had actually very tactically put anti-Semitism at the background of his advocacy, because he was trying to appeal to like center-right people who were scared of fucking communism and shit. So like he was trying to appeal to people who didn't see anti-Semitism as like a top priority. I just feel like if you're talking about suppressing people like Hitler or in any historical example, the problem is that it's not really their speech or their hatefulness that I think is the thing that needs to be quelled. It's things that they actually do. So with Hitler, the opportunity was not missed at anti-Semitic newspapers or things like that. The opportunity was missed because he tried to coup the government and got away with it, right? And then justified himself with a 4-hour opening statement at the fucking court. Whereas by the standards of that time, they would have, like, he should have just been executed by the standards of 1920s. So I feel like long before the Nazis had like 1% of the vote, there were plenty of opportunities to keep him out of office and out of power forever, but they obviously just didn't take it. I don't think his right to speak, though, was really like...
Well, the thing is, if Nazi Germany had a strong constitution where that sort of hate speech wouldn't be allowed, like the Nazi Party just fundamentally wouldn't have, I don't see it really fundamentally being able to exist unless they completely eliminated all of their anti-Semitic bullshit from their political positions.
But they kind of did in a way. So they never got rid of anti-Semitism, but from
I know they kind of quieted it down.
Yeah, because their whole thing was like some of these speeches were just like, it was like fear of communism. Like, we're not going to get taken over by big shit like that. And also appealing to like the anxieties of the depression.
By the way, a lot of that
law and
also
order,
had to do with anti-Semitism. A big reason for why they were going after these communists was because of the Jewish thing.
Yeah, well, it was because of the Jewish thing, but they didn't need to say that, because the reason most people hated communists was because they were violent, not because they were
Be back 1 second.
Right, but I mean, if there was a constitution in place that would not permit hate speech, when they took power, they wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things they did. Like Hitler would have been pretty much immediately impeached, and they'd have to call for new elections.
Because he'd have to get impeached for hate speech when he was in power.
Right.
Well,
which because of I understand it wasn't a democracy, but we have the luxury of living in a democracy, and we could take advantage of that by having hate speech laws in the Constitution that would prevent such a thing.
Yeah, because I think, well, the problem was, and maybe this is like, I don't know if this could ever happen in Canada or like in a more modern society, but I guess the problem was that a lot of the laws that were used to suppress hateful outlets like Der Stürmer and people like Stryker, was those same laws were also utilized when the Nazis took over, right? Because it made it very easy to just ban outlets when you thought that they were threatening, like, not just minorities, but also like public safety and things like that. So I don't know, but that's why I always wonder with Canada, because I don't know that much about Canada's hate speech laws, but I feel like it's quite difficult to have a world where people who use the groomer thing, like, they get done for hate speech, but people who call conservatives like Nazis or cancer or scum or vermin, it's all hyperbole, you know? Like, I feel like I don't know how you disconnect that from people's political leanings, you know, because people always hear incitement louder when it's against them, and they go a little bit ambiguous when it's against someone else.
Well, again, things like Nazis, they're not a protected class. So you usually, I think, not even usually, just always, you see these hate speech laws coming into effect when it's against protected classes. So like women, gay, trans people, black people, crap like that. I haven't seen this have any kind of political chilling effect where if you were to call a political figure like Donald Trump a Nazi, you end up getting arrested and you know, you're being told, okay, well, this is promoting political violence. That just hasn't happened. And Canada is also a little unique compared to the UK and other countries because we actually have free speech in our constitution. It's just that hate speech isn't protected under free speech, whereas in the UK, And I have seen this actually be a problem in the UK because you don't have any free speech in your constitution. And there are restrictions not only on hate speech, but also obscene speech and obscene language. I have seen that result in political dissidents being imprisoned for basically no reason other than having a political opinion.
Yeah, because that's the one that Count Dankula got fucked over by. It had nothing to do with hate speech. It was to do with obscenity or grossly offensive material. But for our hate speech laws are, I don't know how it is for you, but for our hate speech laws, the reason I do the Nazi comparison is because the hate speech laws that we have in the UK, like stirring up hatred, is in a way that the speech violation has to be criminal anyway. Like it has to be a form of incitement or like a very high threshold, which is why very few people get done for it. The hate is just the motive. So when we see someone who's done for
Canada.
Yeah, so for us, like with that crime of stirring up hatred, which sounds very ambiguous and loose, like the people who get done for that are people who would have been done for incitement anyway. Like I think the number of convictions we get is like less than 10 or 20 a year. That's very, very rare that people get done for that. Is it the same in Canada?
Pretty much, yeah. I think in the UK it's illegal to deny the Holocaust. In Canada, if you were to deny the Holocaust, you can also be criminally charged with that. So you can just casually say the Holocaust never happened and then get charged with hate speech.
I don't know if you can do it in the UK. I don't think that's true. I think in Germany it is, but
yeah, I know in Germany it is. I think there's other countries in Europe. I'm pretty sure in the UK.
No,
I could be wrong.
There's a petition
I'm not
for it
from
in
there,
2021 saying that they should make it illegal. So I don't think it's been changed since then.
In the US, I don't know if this is considered an aggravating factor. I don't think that's the right term, but I know that for what you're saying about how the hateful speech is speech that's already illegal, that's kind of how it works in the US, where we have like quote unquote hate crimes, where if you kill somebody or you assault somebody, like it's already a crime, but then if they find out you did it because of a racial motivation, now you can add that on.
It's another aggravating factor.
Yeah. But it's not hateful in and of itself. Like you can't just criminalize hateful behavior. It's only if it's already a crime. That could be like a thing that you add on or something. Yeah.
But that's why I felt like when you were saying hate speech, it sounded like hateful rhetoric that maybe doesn't cross like a criminal threshold should come under it as well.
Right? So what I mean by hate speech, and again, you can look up the Canadian definition of hate speech. It's any kind of speech that is targeted towards a protected group where you are inciting violence against that group. So clear incitement of violence would be all black people should be enslaved, put in chains because they're subhuman animals. That would be considered a clear incitement of hate and violence, especially if you were to say we should just go out and like club all the blackies. That would clearly be an incitement of violence and would be prosecuted under hate speech. I would say most criminal convictions would fall under that kind of incitement anyway. But the way hate speech is defined in Canada, again, it would be anything that would reasonably be expected to result in violence towards a protected class. So if you were to spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories talking about how Jews are trying to kill and poison us all by putting microplastics in the water, and they've also rolled out this vaccine to like sterilize and make your kids gay, and they're trying to crash the economy to make us all poor, and they're actually all Satanists. Those sorts of conspiracy theories, if you would convince somebody of them, you would expect an individual to rationally come to the conclusion that they should actually commit violence against that group of people because they being convinced that they're committing violence against them.
Yeah, it just depends on what the threshold would be in that case then, because I know that in the UK, when the reason the number of convictions is so low is because that speech does have to be an insanely high threshold. So like maybe if someone said what you said, but it was like over a series of tweets for a while, they probably wouldn't get like criminally charged for it. But if there's someone who gives like a very inflammatory speech about Muslims in the middle of the street in front of a crowd and says like, and uses very violent rhetoric and says like, and points to like the Muslim community that's like 20 minutes away, and then there's a riot afterwards, then that's like a better example. But it sounds like when you mentioned Holocaust denial, for example, like it sounds like you want to include that into like a reasonable person would be expected in that to incite violence. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Because Holocaust denialism is connected with all of these other conspiracy theories against Jews, I would say it's totally reasonable to include Holocaust denialism under hate speech, and a type of speech that could incite violence towards a certain group.
So someone goes on Twitter and starts concern trolling about the wooden doors. That's like a crime.
What? I'm not familiar with the wooden doors thing.
Oh, there's a theory, something about like, you ever heard Nazis say that the fucking, the original doors for the gas chambers were wood? So why would they be gassing people with wooden doors? Because gas can get through the doors.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bullshit, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that would. I don't think that would cross that threshold. If you were to say something like only 200,000 Jews at most were killed, not 6 million, that would definitely cross that threshold.
So someone lies about the numbers, that's enough to be a criminal?
I believe so.
Would that be more or less? Is that the case in Canada? That's definitely the case in the UK, because obviously that wouldn't be seen as incitement. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not a legal expert, but I'm pretty sure. And I'm all in favor of that. I don't know why these people should be able to walk around saying the stupid shit.
Because I'm trying to think of all the kinds of harmful disinformation that there is right now, and how many people you would have to be prosecuting to enforce that like, fairly. Because like that means anti-vaxxers, they spread disinformation that gets people killed, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't necessarily be against that either. Like, there has to be something done about this retarded misinformation. And I think things like Holocaust denialism is not something that you want rampant in society. I think that would objectively make society much worse if you have a large portion of the population, especially a majority, who think either no Jews died or it was only a few thousand. I don't want to live in a society like that, and I think there should be laws protecting certain societal standards when it comes to truth and information. I don't think we've crossed a threshold yet. I think we might be close to where vaccine misinformation should be kind of legally prosecuted. By the way, we used to do this. Back in the...
Okay, wait. I believe you.
Back in the 1800s.
Yep, I believe it happened. I disagree with it now. Okay, we got the argument. Anything else?
No, not really.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about Jan 6 stuff, but it's up to you.
Well, yeah, what's up?
About your debate with Andrew yesterday. Is there a big significance to you for it having to be called an insurrection?
Yes, I think it was. I think it's important to understand it as such.
What's the difference between an insurrection and a coup?
I don't know if a coup needs more than one person. I don't know if a coup necessarily has an element of violence involved. I don't think a coup is a resistance to any type of public order. I think a coup is usually just an attempt to usurp power.
From a government, right? So...
Well, I mean,
that's
sure.
why
I mean, you can say there's like a coup of the board of directors or something, but yeah, generally, yeah.
Yeah. So for insurrection, there needs to be violence.
Mm-hmm.
Or has no...
Or the threat of violence, at least, yeah.
Okay, threat of violence. Okay. And some of this stuff I'm not too sure about in terms of detail. So the Whiskey Rebellion, you said that was over. Was that over them trying to take power from the government, or was that to do with tax?
Was this the
What were they trying
tax
to do?
stamp one? I think that there was a tax. There was a whiskey tax. It was the first tax ever imposed on a domestic product by the newly formed federal government. I think people got asked mad about this. Farmers from the western frontier were accustomed to distilling. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. What's your question in particular?
So there was a tax, but the goal was to get rid of the tax, right?
Yeah, I think they were. Protesters used violence and intimidation to prevent federal officials from collecting the tax. Oh, so even when the tax collectors were showing up, they were resisting that. So resisting the implementation of a law or the execution of a law.
Yeah. Okay. So resisting the execution of law. That's because that's why I think in the legal definition that you were going with, like with the American one, is that an insurrection doesn't necessarily have to be like you're trying to replace the government or you're
Correct.
trying to you're trying to just like there's a law that you don't like and you are trying to use violence or the threat of violence to get that law to change. And I think
Or
is that
disrupting
why
like
the-
certain official proceedings, yeah. But the like, I
Disrupting
think
proceedings.
for if the insurrection grows to, or you get to a point where you're trying to like overthrow the power, especially if violence is involved, I think now you've hit like rebellion, basically.
Yeah, that's because the way I hear you guys talk about rebellion is it sounds like rebellion is a coup, but then when I read about rebellion, it feels like the way that they talk about that in American law, it seems to be that the rebellion has to be like it has to be a level of organization as well. Is that right? Like,
I think generally it grows from coups, but like, would you consider all coups to be a rebellion? So like, for
No,
instance, if we
because-
say, I think you could argue maybe that like the Enabling Act was a type of coup, or that if some leadership gets killed and replaced, that's like a type of coup, but would it necessarily be a rebellion?
that's why I'm not sure, because when I was reading some fucking legal shit about insurrections and rebellions, it seems to be the way they talk about rebellion is that they're just talking, it's more like a kind of, it's to do with just how the scale is and like the level of coordination. Like the more organized and more sustained effort to like overthrow an authority. But then to me, that doesn't really work for coups, because actually like coups in general, I think probably most of them that I know about are actually horribly organized, like the Spartacist uprising or the Beer Hall Putsch or January 6th. These things are all like organized like fucking dog shit. Like these guys are really retarded when they
Well,
try
I
to
think
do
I would
what
be.
they're doing.
So I draw a few distinctions. So something being horribly organized doesn't mean it's not organized, right?
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, the coup aspect of January 6th, in my opinion, was actually quite meticulously organized. The coup aspect of that would have been the usurping of the ECA, the Electoral Count Act, by Pence. And that was planned meticulously for weeks ahead of time. And there were multiple channels of pressure that were being exerted on Pence, both official and unofficial, in government and outside of government, in order to do that. So the coup part was pretty meticulously followed through on, or they attempt to. And then the insurrection stuff was a little bit more chaotic, but I think that happened in like what was running in parallel to the coup. Yeah.
So why is January 6th not a rebellion?
Why is January 6th not a rebellion? You might be able to make the argument that it is, but that's going to be a more narrowly tailored argument. But you might be able to make that. I didn't look up the legal definitions and everything of a rebellion, and you don't need to go that far for like the 14th Amendment. So I think insurrection, I think, is very easy, like very easily satisfies everything. January 6th satisfies all the elements of an insurrection very easily. It might for a rebellion. I don't know. I haven't made that argument.
Yeah, because the way I heard the argument yesterday with Andrew, and he went down that little rabbit hole of fucking weed smokers, and eventually, if they start rioting and they actually turn up at the fucking legislature and they say we're not going to leave and we're not going to stop smashing shit up until you like legalize weed or whatever, that would be an insurrection. But like if that counts as insurrection, then it means the way it sounds is it almost makes like insurrections sound like they don't even have to be that wild or that crazy. Whereas when I think of a coup, or in this case, a rebellion, it seems like that sums it up much more clearly, because to me, it's like, it's more than like, it's not just them resisting a procedure or resisting a law, right? Like they're literally trying to illegitimately alter the composition of the government.
For what? For a coup?
Like a coup is trying to alter like illegitimately or
Yeah,
violently.
I would agree, yeah.
The structure of the government, yeah.
Which I think Trump was trying to do for sure.
Yeah, that's what he was trying to do, yeah. But was the purpose of the insurrection argument, even though an insurrection might be like arguably less severe than a coup. Is that just because of like a legal thing, or was that just for that particular debate? Or
the insurrection well, so one, it was for this particular debate. I was just curious if Andrew could actually put up a good challenge to the insurrection argument to see if there was anything I was missing, which seems like I'm not. And then the second part is that I think that it's important because of the language of the 14th Amendment and the repeal of essentially the repeal of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I think was an atrocious ruling from the Supreme Court. And all of the legal language that exists as part of our historical legal and legislative tradition revolves around the language of insurrection. And that's what I studied for and what I've read about and what people have analyzed. There might be writings and wordings about like rebellion. I didn't do any research there. And the 14th Amendment only needed an insurrection, not rebellion. I think it said insurrection and rebellion, or insurrection or rebellion, but you don't need to get all the way to rebellion, yeah.
Okay. I think it's kind of interesting that so many of these defenses that people make of what happened, or it's like so many of these defenses are just to go behind the fact that it was like kind of scuffed, right? Like
Yep.
that it had a low chance of success, and that the people who were rioting were not like particularly well organized. Yeah, but
that's a bad faith
looking
argument
back
because
at-
you can immediately defeat that with literally anything. If some guy runs up to you, and him and his friends talk about buying a knife to go and stab you somewhere, and they're a 4'2" gang of like terrorists, and they can't even get close to you through security, and they eventually get shot and killed or something. And the investigators do research and they discover all these texts. Like, it would be a conspiracy to commit murder. It wouldn't be like, well, there's a really low chance of succeeding, so it's no longer a criminal conspiracy. That's like on its face, it's obviously an untrue bad faith argument. Nobody can seriously believe that. You must know you're committing to that in bad faith because you can't defend it otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, like you don't really get let off the hook for doing it badly. I've been trying because I've read a few of the things now. I've read like a few bits of the January 6th committee and the Trump indictment and the memos. There's something so like strangely satisfying about seeing something that you already knew like quite for sure, but actually just seeing it like right there in front of you, like in the most like unambiguous way.
Yeah.
Like the example I thought of was in Trump's speech when he's talking about certify the legitimate electors, fight like hell. He mentions Pennsylvania. I don't know if did you notice that bit when he mentions that Pennsylvania where they were asking us to recertify?
I haven't. I'm going to go through that entire speech though on the J6 part, which is the next section I'm working on. But
Yeah, because I was watching a bit of that speech today, and then also the Giuliani and Eastman's speech as well. In Trump's speech, when he talks about Pennsylvania, he says that like Pennsylvania specifically, he singles them out, saying they wanted us to recertify. But then going through the history of Trump trying to get his claims through in Pennsylvania, that was actually the state where like 4 Republican leaders of the legislature said that they didn't want to overturn the popular vote, and that there was no evidence of fraud. And Trump even retweeted someone who was singling out these legislators and calling them cowards. So like the leading Republican legislators in Pennsylvania are being called cowards by Trump for not doing what he wants them to and refuting his claims.
Yep. And then he says later on that they want. Yeah, he does that a lot.
That's fucking mad. Like just having those side by side like blew my fucking mind. I'm just like, he's just completely made that up.
If you're looking for like the best
yeah.
example of like wacky shit like that, in the J6 review, it's in the executive summary. If you go to page like 22, it lists like 15 examples of Trump being told, "Hey, just so you know, this particular thing is not true," and then like 1 week later he repeats it. 1 day later he repeats it. 5 hours later he repeats it. Like he does this over and over and over and over and over again. Like if this was a criminal case, people always say this really stupid thing. I don't know if you let anybody slide with this or not. People say, "Oh, you can't determine what's in somebody's mind." That's how all criminal convictions are built. You have to know what's in their mind. That's the whole point of mens rea. You have to say that they had a criminal intent when they did something. Otherwise, it's not a criminal crime. That's the whole definition of crime. And if you were ever trying to prove the intent of somebody, like you're so far over the line in having data for Trump to show that he was intentionally and maliciously lying. Like it's not a question. Reasonable minds there is no room for reasonable minds to disagree on whether or not Trump was intentionally lying. You can't. If you want to take that claim, I will let it slide, but only if you're saying that in court, Donald Trump would plead to insanity and he's incoherent, like he's experiencing psychosis. And that's why we'll say, okay, fine, he actually didn't know because Trump can't discern reality from fiction. That's the only defense.
I'm trying to think of examples of people who are maybe not like having psychosis, but are so either egotistical or like narcissistic that they will believe things that are just not true and just keep sticking to them, even regardless of all the information. But yeah, even if you're making that argument, then it's like if you're too senile to be president, you're probably too like deranged to be president as well.
Yeah.
I think this was the Raffensperger call as well, isn't it? When he's like, when he says that he's got that video, the edited video of the ballot boxes. And then I think Raffensperger says, I've got a link to show you why this is out of context. And then Trump said, what did he say? I don't need that. I've got a much better link. Like, oh, fuck me, man. It's like, the indictment does this really well, though.
You should listen
Like,
to that
they'll
full.
say, like,
You should listen to that phone call. He repeats about 20 debunked conspiracy theories on that call, and there's even a part where he's like, I've seen all of these things. Like, I know this is happening, and I think Raffensperger or his counsel on the phone with him is like, sir, like these are just things you're seeing on social media. They're not true. And Trump says, I'm not seeing these on social media. I'm seeing these on Trump media.
Fuck me. It's yeah, the way that they do it in the indictment is pretty. I feel like it's quite good how they do it, because for every state, it's like it starts with, oh, on December 4th, Trump tried to ask like the attorney general or the deputy attorney general about dead voters, and they all said it's fake. And then he brings it up again to the state legislature. They say it's fake. And then he brings it to the Justice Department. They say it's fake. On January 6th, Trump spoke about 10,000 dead people voting in Georgia.
Yep.
Like, they do that for every single state.
The indictment is structured really well. The J6, the whole committee is structured incredibly well. This is very well written and painstakingly sourced. There must be over 5,000 annotations in this 845-page report, and there's a separate part on the site, the J6 committee, where they link to every single deposition, they link to every single court doc, every single recorded hearing. Like, yeah, there's just so much information in here. You're so
okay, Finkelstein, yeah,
Yeah.
lots of footnotes,
True.
right?
Yeah, true.
You checked all of them.
I've gone through a lot of them. They're very, very,
4
very
times.
entertaining. Not 4 times, not yet.
Well, I'll wait till 4 times. Here's one thing I'm not sure about. They talk about the electoral. Fuck, what's it called? The 1887 Act. The state.
The ECA, the Electoral Count Act,
Electoral
yes.
Count Act. Yeah, yeah. They say that it's unconstitutional. What part of it do they say is unconstitutional? Because I don't really understand like his legal argument there.
Yeah. So first of all, okay, let me say something. Let me stress something a lot. Okay, a legal argument doesn't mean like it's got a solid foundation in law, and it doesn't mean like I could have the legal argument that I'm allowed to commit murder because I'm actually going to redefine murder to mean something else, and then I'm going to go out and kill somebody and tell the court that I didn't define murder the way that they did, and here's a different dictionary that I published my way. That's a legal argument. It is, and it's just as valid as any other quote-unquote legal argument, right? The legal argument is only as good as the supporting justification for it. Their legal argument was there was something passed called the Electoral Count Act, and what they were saying is, well, actually, let's see, this is such a strained argument. It basically had to do with the idea that the way that the vice president was tallying the votes as president of the Senate, that he had the authority to end debate in Congress over the electoral votes. So, for instance, if he were to open up some of the fake elector slates and were to say, well, I can't figure out who these are, you guys can debate it, that the ECA sets out a process by which the Senate can confer with themselves and figure out if they want to accept the votes or not. And Eastman made 2 arguments. One, I think he said that actually the vice president can end these special rules and go back to normal or ordinary Senate rules or Senate floor rules and can end debate in 5 minutes. And then because of the 12th Amendment, where it says that the vice president or whatever is allowed to count the vote or whatever, he can throw it back to the House delegation or something. It was, I had to go back and dig for like the exact details, but it was a bullshit argument. Nobody thought that this argument was real. Nobody, okay? The only people that supported it, none of Vice President Pence's counsel or legal advisors thought that it was legitimate. Nobody in the White House thought that it was legitimate. The only people that did were the crackpot lawyers that Donald Trump brought on to feed him answers that he wanted to get, which is Eastman and Powell, and then the people like Chesbrough. That's it. There was no real argument. Nobody sincerely thought that this is a thing that the vice president could do. Nobody thought that.
And did Trump have contact with Eastman and Chesbrough? Did he have contact with them before any of this, or did he like go shopping for those guys?
Chesbrough was recommended by another lawyer that was working for the Trump campaign, and Chesbrough started drafting insane memos for basically how to like steal an election essentially. And then when the Trump campaign caught wind of this, Eastman started to amplify these things. And then Donald Trump started to, because Eastman, I think, took these to Donald Trump and was like, hey, actually, there is a way that we could do this. And then when Donald Trump saw that, then they all started kind of like leaning into and putting together memos and plans in order to make this particular thing work. But people like Chesbro, people like Eastman, these people were specifically sought out in order to feed Trump the legal conclusion that he wanted. Remember, the president of the United States, he has a Department of Justice, okay, which should have arguably, he's your Attorney General, one of the most qualified legal scholars, arguably, in the USA. He has the Office of Legal Counsel. This is an office created in the White House, okay, validated by fucking Congress. The Office of Legal Counsel is supposed to be what you go to check if a particular thing is legal or not in your actions as the president. And there is an office called the Office of the White House that also has a legal division that can give you legal opinions. None of these people validated anything that Donald Trump wanted to say. It was only private legal counsel that he brought in. Every other lawyer that was part of the White House, part of the OLC, or part of the DOJ all told him that it was bullshit. People like Hirschman, people like Cifaloni, people like Rosen, people like Dunhill, everybody said it was bullshit. Just as a heads up. Okay.
Okay.
I just want to, the only reason I'm specifying that is because so many Trumples will say things like, well, there are lawyers that were telling him that it was legitimate. Yeah, kind of like how, like Saul
you
Goodman.
Can hire a lawyer to tell you about fucking anything.
Yeah, like Saul Goodman was giving Walter White or whatever, like legal advice, and you were saying, oh, well, it was a real lawyer. No, he went to him obviously to hide his shit. It was to do illegal activity, right?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, especially since fucking Eastman, like he does look like the kind of guy who's about to try and sell you a fucking fake Rolex, like around the back of a fucking alleyway.
True.
Like he looks like. Do you know what a spiv is? You ever heard of a spiv?
No idea. It sounds like a name that like a British person would give to like a spoon or something for no fucking reason, or a fork with like 2 prongs.
No, a spiv. It's like a British thing, but like, a spiv is like a kind of like a dodgy salesman, like a black marketeer. They came up in like World War II in like weird fucking trashy, flashy suits selling rations, and then they just like continue to be a thing in like, or you see them like car boot sales and shit like that. Yeah,
Okay.
a spiv. It's a good term for these people.
Gotcha.
But about these, I was watching the speeches between Trump, Giuliani, and Eastman from January 6th because, like, the Eastman scheme had like 2 or 3 different fucking sort of avenues that it could go down. Right. One was that Pence just unilaterally says the fake votes are real, make you president. And then there's the one that's like put it to the House where there's 26 Republicans, so they vote majority Trump.
Yeah, or 29 actually. There were more than I thought, but yeah.
Does the indictment say 26 though? Or is it actually 29?
I think it was like 27 or 29. I think it was more than 26. I thought it was 26 initially, but then through my research, I found out I think it was like 29 or 20.
Okay,
but
whatever.
go ahead, yeah.
But yeah, and then the other one is they send it back to the states for 10 days to investigate fraud or some shit, and then like the House. So, but when they're giving their speeches on the day, they're all giving different versions of it for what they want to happen. So I think Giuliani says either Pence is going to make it, like it's going to do the unilateral thing, or he's going to do the fucking send it back for 10 days. And then Eastman says they're going to send it back to the states for 10 days. And then Trump, when he's doing his part, he sort of suggests that he just wants them to send it back, but send it back to the House, which means they would actually vote for it on the day, right?
Correct.
So
remember, hold on, keep in mind real quick.
What their preferences, like what they're going for, or are they just throwing 3 things at the wall to hope Pence picks one of them, or what?
By the end, I'm pretty sure I don't know if it's explicitly stated. I could read through the particular depositions. I don't know if it matters that much. I'm not sure if they are specifically calling for one, but keep in mind that at this point, Trump doesn't want legitimate investigation into the into any of the voter fraud stuff, because almost all of the court cases that they're doing are all like procedural challenges. When they're trying to throw ballots out and shit, they're just trying to say that the procedure wasn't followed correctly. There are very few allegations of like actual fucking fraud in a lot of these court cases. All of these grounds are procedural, or a lot of them are procedural, and I don't think they legitimately think that any investigation is going to turn up real voter fraud. At this point, every single person close to Trump had told him that wasn't going to be the case, and he was never going to find any of this shit because it just wasn't true.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering, like, if they had actually managed to get it sent back to the states to investigate fraud, like what was the point in them trying to do that? Because is it just to buy time to pressure legislatures? Or no, the question I had was, if they send it back to the states and they have 5 or 10 days to investigate fraud, who decides in the end whether or not the vote flips, or who actually won in each state? Would it have to be the House would vote in it, or what?
I don't know if anybody knows I think we're in uncharted territory at that point. I don't know what I don't think there is a process for that. Because contesting the legitimacy of the vote the electoral count is not the time to do that. That's not a legitimate time to contest. That's just not when you do that, right? It was either before the election for processes, or maybe immediately after if you're alleging some type of fraud, hopefully in expedited court cases if you've got good evidence of it. They had none. But it's not at the time of the certification of the vote. That's a wholly inappropriate time to have that challenge.
And I guess if it did happen, it would just give so much more legitimacy to Trump's idea. Like if the certification of the vote ended on that day with them saying there's too much confusion, we need to investigate fraud in 7 states. Yeah. Well, technically 6, because I think the allegations of fraud for New Mexico came like 4 minutes before they were supposed to actually submit the electoral slates, right? They just made that one up right at the end.
Possibly. There was courts that had said, and actually, I'm sorry, there are courts quoting Eastman in some emails where Eastman is saying, he's literally saying that we're just going to go ahead and like continue challenging these things in court in order to keep these cases alive so that we can make a stronger argument for falsifying elector slates, right? That was explicitly stated by him in emails. Wait.
Did you see the Trump retweet where I've noticed a few of these, that some I've deleted Trump tweets where he retweeted someone who actually posted the Eastman plan in like December. The Eastman, the Pence, yeah, you call it like the Pence operation plan or something.
Who did?
Trump retweeted someone who was on December 23rd, Trump retweeted someone who had posted this like memo.
It shouldn't be. My guess is that would have been from Chesbro. I don't know if Eastman in December had like super picked this up yet. Can you link me the tweet?
Yeah, it's from some random dude. It's neither of them, unless it's like a second account. But I'll find you the thing. I've had to archive it. 1 second. All right, so this is the person on Twitter who caught it. I'll give you the original as well. Where are you? Haven't spoken to you in ages. Discord.
Just as a real quick, let me just read this real quick from, this is a court case filing
Yep.
Related to Eastman stuff. On December 4th, 2020, President Trump and his attorneys alleged in a Georgia state court action that Fulton County improperly counted a number of votes, including 10,315 deceased people, 2,560 felons, and 2,423 unregistered voters. President Trump and his attorneys then decided to contest the state court proceeding in federal court and discussed incorporating by reference the voter fraud numbers alleged in the state petition. On December 30th, 2020, Dr. Eastman relayed concerns from President Trump's team about including specific numbers in the paragraph dealing with felons, deceased, moved, etc., etc. The attorneys continued to discuss the president's resistance to signing, quote, when specific numbers were included, end quote, as Dr. Eastman explained the next day, and then a quote from his email. Although the president signed a verification for the state court filing back on December 1st, he has since been made aware that some of the allegations and evidence proffered by the experts has been inaccurate. For him to sign a new verification with that knowledge and incorporation by reference would not be accurate, end quote, for that email. The next paragraph. President Trump and his attorneys ultimately filed the complaint with the same inaccurate numbers without rectifying, clarifying, or otherwise changing them. President Trump, moreover, signed a verification swearing under oath that the incorporated inaccurate numbers, quote, are true and correct, end quote, or, quote, believed to be true and correct, end quote, to the best of his knowledge and belief. So it's beyond the pale of like, well, was he truly lying or not? Like, yeah, it's beyond. Yeah. Okay, what did you link?
Hustler Inspector Gadget. The second one, if you just scroll a little bit down, that's the original retweet.
Is this web archive fucked?
Not for me. What are you trying to do?
I clicked your web archive. It took me to December 24th. Am I just scrolling down looking for a retweet?
Yeah, the retweet from Ivan Pence.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Reichland. Yeah.
American @VP @Mike Pence must do this tomorrow to defend our Constitution from our enemies. Hold on. Opening. Can documents open on web archive?
I don't know if I think you just have to zoom in incredibly hard on it.
Memorandum for the president. Operation Pence Card.
Like, I don't actually know who this person is.
The U.S. Constitution, blah, blah. Okay, on December 20th, the Vice President will notify each Secretary of State
which certified, okay, on December 23rd. At this point, I guess Eastman, did I say no to December? It would have been in late November. He would have known. I'm trying to, let me see. When did Chesbrough start his theory? Let me check. Kenneth Chesbrough's initial memos were on November 9th is when he was hired. Okay, on December 13th, mid-December, is when Chesbrough has everything like more formalized. Okay, so Eastman might have been amplifying it from that point. This was written on December 22nd.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Chesbrough plan that is... this is the Chesbrough plan that Eastman was amplifying. Are you asking like who this tweet came from, or where the memo came from, or?
I just didn't know that Trump had tweeted this publicly, like the entire the memo. Yeah.
Bro,
Or
on the
a
day,
version of it, yeah.
I think on the day of. Hold on, I haven't gone over the day of yet. That's the next section of my thing, but I have a section on Pence here. I want to say on the day of, he literally tweeted, "Today, Mike Pence needs to do something for the electoral votes." I think he tweeted on the day of, but yeah, this was all incredibly blatant. And Steve Bannon was having nightly shows where Eastman was going onto these shows, Giuliani was going onto these shows, talking about how, there's leaked calls from Bannon. They were talking about how Pence could overturn the election, and then there were leaked calls from Bannon saying, "Listen, on election night, Trump is going to claim victory, okay, and all hell is going to break loose, okay." Bannon is on a leaked call, literally saying this in front of a room before January 6th, that he was going to try to call victory on election night and stop the count. All of this is none of this is, the easiest part about this argument is none of this, you don't have to rely on any kind of conspiracy. You don't have to rely on any kind of assumption. You don't have to, all of this is super, super, super in the open. Like 10 times as much material as you would need to prove this was happening is out in the open. And 95% of the people that are being interviewed by this J6 committee in order to, see what happened are Republicans. A lot of them lifelong Republicans. Yeah.
Yeah, on the day at 1 a.m., he was telling Pence to send the votes back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then again in the morning. Yeah.
Oh, did you click the presidency.ucsb.edu? It's a presidential record of all the tweets. So
the tweets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've looked at that as well.
So
there are a couple I found that actually aren't on there, but yeah, the one where he's calling the Pennsylvania people cowards or whatever. There's one tweet there that
he's alleging all of these different voter fraud things, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Okay, and then January 6th at 6 a.m., if Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistake they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in a process not approved by their state legislatures, which it must be. Mike can send it back. That entire statement, I think, is criminally false. That is absolutely not true. It is knowingly not true, and it is knowingly made in opposition to what state legislatures were saying at the time. Every part of this statement is absolutely incorrect. Knowingly false, a lie. Yeah.
Yeah, was it Eastman or Chesbrough who at one point actually disagreed with the theory that they put forward in the end, with the whole idea that the vice president could...
All of them admitted at multiple points that it probably was on shaky grounds, or at best it probably wouldn't work. Even Eastman does in some of his private conversations with... Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, dicey and problematic. That's actually in his own fucking...
Chesbrough said that in regards to some of the fake elector slates being sent out. He's like, it's probably not okay. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna read a couple more things about this. There's a few sections of the January 6th committee I want to go through, and then I'm just abandoning it forever. What a stupid fucking country.
Fuck you, bitch.
I'm trying to take an interest, but it's it's just fucking mental. Half of the population believes this. Oh God. Is that scary?
Yeah, it is, and it's incredibly fucking annoying. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you if there are conservatives or other people that are unconvinced, okay, once I finish this, okay, I'm going to try to run through this with as many people as will hear me out, because I think that it's incontrovertible. Like I said, this isn't like a JFK assassination or 9/11 whodunit thing or whatever. This is just so blatantly, obviously, this is what's happening. So, yeah.
There's no way someone's comparing this to people wanting Brexit, mate. The lies about Brexit were oh, we give money to the EU, we'll put it to the health system instead. I'm sorry, but that's yeah, we've got our original spivs who sell that shit, but people that's not like this, okay? Fuck.
The attempt on J6 was worse than the attempt of Brexit, but the fact that Brexit succeeded and J6 didn't succeed is what would make people say that Brexit was worse, yeah? But I
That's
mean, I agree
retarded.
with you that it's,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, our Republican spiff party gets fucking like 10% of the vote and no seats. So yeah, and their whole scam is like they'll say, oh, this particular fucking Bank of England tax policy will raise 30 billion when the experts actually only say 9 billion. Like that's what they do. Like it's not comparable.
Yeah.
Fuck. How do you feel about Kamala switching over from Biden?
Seems so far like it's going okay. I think that one thing that I didn't count on was how racist and sexist the Republicans were and how hidden that might have been because it was Biden that they were running against. So maybe Kamala will make them show their ass like really hard on that. It seems to be an issue right now. I'm also a little bit underwhelmed by Vance. I don't understand that pick at all. Like I could kind of understand Pence, right? You're trying to shore up your like very evangelical, like traditional government types. You know, like I think Pence kind of makes sense. I don't get the Vance thing, but who knows? Maybe I'll understand in months.
You know, like in some video games where you can have a sort of clone of yourself that just absorbs all the hits that come to you, and then before it dies, isn't that like Vance like taking the heat? Because I think it felt like in the Biden debate, Trump's entire goal was to like just act normal. You know, don't look like a criminal, don't act like a criminal, don't act like someone who tried to overthrow the government. Just kind of like. So maybe he's just like there to absorb all the fucking media heat. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess he just has to be careful not to get like the problem is that they've invested so much. The Republicans, it's ironic, they say make America great again, but their platform is just like a very vitriolic and hateful platform. So they invested so much in attacking Biden, right? Attacking him on his age, attacking him on his divisive rhetoric, attacking him on Hunter Biden, on his son's cock and the crack cocaine and all of that. And now that's all completely off the table. And now it's like, okay, well, fuck. Well, now we have to shift gears a lot. All of the attacks we made about somebody being old or dodging debates kind of makes us look a little bit bad right now. We'll see how much that impacts them. But now Kamala is leaning into Trump saying like, hey, I thought you were going to debate anytime, any place. Why don't you want to now? And now they've got to they've got to completely reshift on attacking Kamala in a way that doesn't alienate all of the black voters that they had won and completely turn off women, which they've been doing. So they're in a weird spot because they don't have anything positive to run on, right? And yeah, I mean, what like the strongest attacks against Kamala during the primaries are attacks from the left. Is Donald Trump going to attack Kamala for being like too tough on crime or attack her for being too much of a prosecutor? Like
I've noticed they're trying to do like both at once, isn't it? Like the more, I guess the like Republicans who call themselves libertarians are trying to say, oh, she locked up a bunch of weed smokers, but then they're also saying she gave bail money for BLM rioters to go and come out of jail and burn buildings again.
Yeah.
Right? So they're doing both at once. Which you can get away with that if you're a Republican though, because I've noted, I feel like from following this stuff just for a couple of weeks, it's like I feel like the entire Republican strategy is just say whatever you can that just looks
lie about
okay
whatever, make
for the
whatever.
day,
Yeah,
and
you
then
just keep attack.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like the Gish Gallop strategy of politics. Like, just make up whatever attack and move on to the next thing and hope people forget in a few days. Because Republicans have no accountability. They're treated like retarded animals. If you've got a dog and he's got like a neurological disorder and he shits on the floor, you kind of like, you feel bad for him and he walks to the other corner of the room. That's where the Republican Party is. Donald Trump can say or do anything. They're held to absolutely no level of accountability. But you better believe that if you shout at that dog that just shit all over your floor, everybody's going to look at you like you're an asshole, right? So if you tell a conservative like, hey, you know, wow, somebody got shot at one of your rallies, that's pretty sad. But like, the fuck did you expect when you engage in this type of behavior? Now they're like super indignant and everything. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, Jesus Christ, like what the fuck do you think is going to happen? Yeah, that's where the Conservative Party has, I guess, arrived at right now.
Yeah, this was, oh God, it was Tommy Lahren who gave me the best example of this. It was when she was talking about Kamala taking over and it being a coup, right? Like the democratic process, and she was like, the American people demand to have an explanation for this. We want transparency. I'm like, I have never seen such a unconvincing, like porn acting tier, fucking fake outright. Like you don't give a fuck about that. Like,
yeah, please help me, stepbrother. My democratic process is stuck right now. I promise. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, but
dude.
at the time, it's like, oh shit, this is like, okay, actually, this is what she's doing to get through the day as a Republican. Fuck. I don't know. I'm trying not to fall into the same trap of like realizing that it's been really relieving to see that we don't have to worry about the leader stuttering on debate stages and like coming out with a completely incoherent sentence every now and then. But also like the whole revitalized support base for Kamala. It seems like the entire Democratic support base has actually like woken up from a fucking 4-year snooze.
Yeah.
But from the UK, I'm trying not to fall into this trap of letting that fuck your expectations, because someone else who actually vitalized like Zoomer, TikTok, and Twitter and all this kind of like alt media was Corbyn. He was like insanely popular. He drew large crowds. Social media like was able to carve out a pretty massive space that loved him, like all the TikToks, and like he was a meme lord, or he had meme lords working for him. But you know, he got absolutely fucking annihilated. So because
you have to be careful though, because while that's true, I don't think that I don't know if there's any other country in the world that's as lost as the U.S. is when it comes to how our media and political system come together. Like, we're pretty uniquely fucked. I think the United States is insane. Like, is there any? Have you ever seen a debate in any UK politics, up from the local level all the way up to the parliamentary level or whatever? Like, even when you guys are all shouting at each other, that like matches the level of unhingedness of our debates, like in the Republican primary in 2016, where they're talking about like doing yoga, or where they're talking about like it was just like unhinged. It's just insane, I think.
Yeah, and they all talk over each other as well. It's like there's not like half the time there's no information coming forward because it's just kind of noise. Yeah, it was really bizarre.
Hold on, there's some guys. Assman wants to come in and chat. Roto, you're up.
Hello.
Hello.
Hold on, let me.
Are you mad at me or at Dustin?
So I'm not getting. Okay. Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi, what's up?
Hi.
Okay, so God, you have to be so fucking obnoxious just to get on the stream. So yeah, I think your entire insurrection, this whole insurrection arc, is just such a loser arc, dude. It's like you're genuinely just throwing away like all of these research streams that you've been doing for the past, I don't know, what was it, like a month or so. And I think that, okay, let me just get down to it. So you're doing this whole, what was it, the
just get to that argument. Yeah, go to the argument.
Yeah, the 4-step definition debate, where it's like, I don't even remember the 4 things it had to be, but genuinely what's going on here is, I think what's happening is people have this colloquial definition of insurrection in their head already, right? Where
none of my future debates against people are going to be strictly on just the events of January 6th. I think those are probably the least consequential things that I'll be talking about. It'll probably be the entire plan from start to finish between Donald Trump and his cronies, and then that culminated on January 6th.
Is that a concession implicitly that this particular debate was a waste of time?
I wouldn't say this was a waste of time. I would say that this is like a hyper-specific autistic debate that I wanted to have with Andrew Wilson, who's known for having hyper-autistic debates. But this, I wouldn't expect this to resemble any future debates. There's a reason why in my debate with Andrew, I didn't bring up basically any conduct related to Trump as part of my arguments, or any conduct prior to January 6th, or anything like that. It was exclusively focused on the insurrection thing. Yeah.
Okay, wait. So maybe I misunderstood, because I thought I heard you say that you were specifically honing in on the insurrection piece.
Yeah, it's like, but that's like a totality, like a whole thing of like all of Donald Trump's behavior from before the election to culminating on January 6th.
Okay, got you. Because at least in this last debate, you guys just spent so long talking about the definition of insurrection that really there is no focus on Trump whatsoever.
I'm aware of that, yeah.
Not even really, maybe I think at the very end when you guys started doing like call-ins, I think he finally started getting around to Trump. So to me, the whole argument just felt like a waste of time. It felt like you're more so just honing in on the people that were rioting and.
Yeah. Wait. Did you not just? Did you not just listen to the thing I just said?
I mean, I heard you, but
yeah. None of my future conversations are going to sound like this. Andrew is a specific type of debater. That's why I agreed to do this particular type of debate. But ordinarily, like there was a reason why he was blacklisted. Although to be fair, it was actually just for weird personal attacks. But yeah, Andrew will engage in like an unlimited amount of bad faith if he feels like that's the only way to win a debate. So I was just curious to test the logic of this particular thing here. But this was a hyper-specific conversation about just the conduct on January 6th, completely divorced from Trump's behavior. Almost none of the conduct that I was even alleging here for it to be an insurrection involved Trump's behavior. We didn't even touch really on any of Trump's behavior prior to January 6th. So yeah, I'm aware of that. None of my future arguments will look like the one with Andrew Wilson.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I was afraid of. And the whole week leading up to that debate, I was actually afraid of it coming across kind of the way it did to me, because
Okay,
there's so
sure.
little
I don't know
focus
how
on
to
Trump,
help
but-
people that like
but
can't
if-
hear or can't understand. Like I
no.
literally said, just to be clear, hold on. I just want to be clear. I just need to illustrate to the audience like how either deaf or retarded you are. Okay. I literally said going into
You
this
said
debate.
Going into this debate, yeah, it's going to be specific, but
I said specifically the only possible out he has is to make the entire debate about the definition of insurrection. So if you heard me give the warning to that, you saw me go into the debate, you saw that happen, and you go, oh my God, I'm so worried that all of your debates are going to look like this. When I literally said that this is going to be, I don't know what else I could possibly say to you other than just like don't have your caretaker like turn on my stream when I say that something like retarded is about to happen, and then you're going to stereotype that to every single future conversation. Like I don't know what else to say for that.
Okay. Well, then yeah, I mean, as long as all the future debates aren't going to be hyper specific on the insurrection piece, then I think I don't really have much of a problem then.
Okay. Well, I love you, buddy.
All right, thanks.
Be careful.
But-
Okay, sorry.
He's right. I don't remember the 4 points either. Can't
Oh,
remember
for
one.
insurrection?
Oh, assemblage isn't this. Yeah, what I do remember is nebulous, and it's not my burden.
True.
He's unburdened.
I don't
My
want it.
burden.
What's your
It's a good
definition?
strategy.
Give me. I don't want it. It's not mine.
It's a good try. It fucking worked, didn't it? It embedded itself in the memory better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like fuck. It reminds me so much of the genocide debate. Like any debate over a fucking term, just like you can't do it. That's why I was speaking to Rob about January 6th, and he was like, he tried to ask me like I think at least 2 or 3 times like about insurrection. I was like, I'm not touching this fucking word with a 40-foot pole. Like we're talking about what happened. Fuck you.
Sure. And it's okay, by the way, to have a debate over a term, especially if that's like part of what you're debating. I think it's fine. But like, he's not debating the term in good faith. He's not providing like an alternate definition where you would say, oh, okay, well, this is a good satisfactory definition. I prefer this one. And he's not saying like, okay, fine, you've got a definition that is different from riot, which I clarified multiple times. Now let's see if January 6th comports with my definition of insurrection. He just wanted to autistically like pretend to not understand some things. Like he kept going back to the resisting a law and breaking the law are the same thing. And I think he had to do that multiple times because he knew that if he conceded that ground to me, he would auto lose the debate. So there was that one that he kept looping on. And then there was a second one, I forget. Resisting and breaking a law, he kept looping on. And there was a second thing that he kept looping on. But he kept repeating the same thing. I'm like, we've already done this. I don't know why you're like looping on this particular thing. Oh, the fixation on whether or not it was a... fixating on whether or not it was like a state insurrection or if a state insurrection can happen, like it was not really relevant. Oh, and the charges being brought was a thing that I feel like I adequately addressed, and he didn't respond to my argumentation for any of that. That if you show me a riot, I can tell you what a riot is. I don't need to know if somebody was charged with the crime of rioting, and that we can imagine a riot or an insurrection or some action happening where nobody was criminally charged with it. That doesn't mean that the particular event itself didn't happen. There's a different standard for like a criminal charge and a criminal conviction versus like an event itself occurring. He never responded to any of that. Yeah, the charges loop was horrible, and then that first loop on resisting a law versus breaking a law was horrible, and he didn't he didn't address those ever. He just kept looping on it.
With that term, resisting a law, does that come from the legal stuff that you were reading?
Yeah, it's from the one of the amicus briefs, and then it was from, I don't know if the Paulson and Baud paper details with that as much, but yeah, a lot of the prior insurrections and stuff were trying to resist like federal authorities or people carrying out the execution of a law or passing, I think, like a particular law. So like that, the Whiskey Rebellion was against the federal officers coming and trying to collect like that tax. Like they were trying to resist the implementation of that law through violence and collective means and everything. Yeah.
How are they trying to stop the implementation in the Whiskey Rebellion?
Well, I think the idea is that if you shoot or attack or prevent somebody from ever coming to collect the tax, you're essentially preventing the execution of this particular law by fighting for it. I mean, I guess ostensibly you'd hope they would overturn it. I mean, I could do more particular reading or research into the Whiskey Rebellion, but once somebody's gotten to that level, I doubt that they actually
that's where you get into that's where you get into a problem, though, because like resisting a law just like makes it sound so much fucking less than what January 6th was, right? Because when I think of resisting a law, especially for just like a layperson's brain, you could say like if that's what the Whiskey Rebellion was, then like without just like leaving the violence aside, that would mean like people. You get into a situation where if you're breaking a law, but your breaking of the law is also part of a resistance to that law. Say like in the UK when people opposed the poll tax by refusing to pay their poll tax, right? Would that be like insurrectionary if it just added some violence into it? Or like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if you refuse to pay the poll tax and you were protesting the poll tax, it would be a protest. If you did it through like collective violent means or whatever, then yeah, it would be an insurrection, I guess, would qualify.
But it needs to be violence, right?
the violence or like a threat of, right? Like if a ton of people show up and it's pretty obvious that there's like the threat of violence, nobody technically has to get hurt, but if that's like what the kind of the goal of the movement is, then yeah.
So if the civil rights protesters wanted to go to a fucking lunch counter and they said, if you refuse a service, we're going to like lock you up and just sit in your cafe or your restaurant or whatever, would that be insurrection?
No, the fourth element that didn't really get touched on much is it has to be like a public grievance or like a public concern. So something related to like public office. So like in the event of like a sports team losing or a restaurant, you know, turning down service or something, that's not, you're not trying to pressure like a public official and the execution of a, or application of a law or like some federal proceeding or something. You're just, yeah.
That makes sense. I'm just going to call it a coup.
Yeah, you can do that. I think the coup argument is just as
yeah.
strong. Yeah, I would say it was a coup and insurrection running together. I just, if you call it a coup, that's fine. Or if you want to argue it like I do, that it's an insurrection, that's fine. Or if you, but what I just don't like, what I don't appreciate, what I don't want, are people who only say it's a riot. Like if you wanted to say it was a riot plus a coup, fine. But the reason why people don't like insurrection, anybody that argues against an insurrection is probably also going to argue against a coup, and they're just going to say, oh, it's just a riot. Some people just got violent. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I would.
No, that's not yeah. And then, I'm quite confident because I think I'm maybe going to speak to Rob again, more like specifically about that. I'm so happy I don't have to ever think about fucking Burisma or Hunter Biden again because like fuck that. Yeah, at least that's off the table. Maybe. But yeah, because there's so many historical examples of things that were so much less serious than January 6th that still got called coups. So, or attempted coups or failed coups, and the
insurrection,
whole, like, the whole argument, like the whole argument as well, like, oh, how many of the protesters really understood what Giuliani or Eastman or Trump were talking about when they spoke about electoral slates and all that shit? Well, maybe like 1% of them understood it, and the rest were just there for the fucking memes. But that's also true of the Spartacist uprising in 1919 in Germany, right? Those people were there for a fucking general strike, and then before you knew it, like it's getting hijacked by a minority of communists who want to take over the country and turn it into a Soviet Germany, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I would also, I would focus.
Know that, right? Yeah.
People play stupid on this, but I would focus on when you're going to protest on January 6th, you are protesting the certification of the vote at Capitol Hill. What the fuck are you protesting? You're not protesting voter fraud at that point. If you think you are, then you should be institutionalized. You don't understand what the fuck you're doing or what's going on. You're protesting because you think the election was stolen. That's what Donald Trump said multiple times in his speech. That's why people were holding up signs of 1776. That's what people wanted Mike Pence to come through on. That's why they were saying, hang Mike Pence when Donald Trump tweeted that he wasn't going to be able to, save the fucking Trump presidency. They were there to protest the certification of the vote. That's what they were protesting. Not voter fraud, not anything else. It was the election results.
They were also chanting "Send it back" when Trump said Pence needs to send it back. Like,
sure.
That started a chant.
Yeah.
Send it back. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a very specific demand. Yeah. But I mean, what were the other arguments that no one's been convicted of it legally? Do you know? The crime of apartheid has existed since 1972, 3.
Wait, where?
Do you know how many? The crime. It's an international crime. Crime against, I think, yeah.
In 1973, the International Committee on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid was okay. In 73, yes, okay. This came from South Africa, though, right?
Well, do you know how many people have been convicted under this law?
I think it's 0, right?
Yeah, none. Yeah. So it doesn't mean South Africa wasn't apartheid.
Sure, true. Same thing with genocides as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no Nazi was convicted of genocide even after the law came in. There were plenty of Nazis alive to go and convict, but
yeah, but
I like that clip. That one's for free. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No. I think I'm just gonna go read more and be cringe.
All right. Bye.
Love you.